Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something pretty significant in UK politics right now. Labour's new proposals for, well, tightening immigration rules. It's definitely causing a stir.
It is, and it's a policy area with, potential knock-on effects that are really quite crucial for everyone to understand.
Absolutely. And to help us navigate all this, we're joined today by Dr. Alex Fraser. Dr. Fraser is a senior fellow at the Institute for Public Policy and a leading expert in migration and labor economics. Welcome.
Thanks, it's good to be here.
Now, for you listening, we know you want to get to the heart of these changes quickly and clearly. So our mission today is really to unpack these proposed rules from labor, look at their potential impact, and understand the politics behind it all. And just before we dive in, thanks for watching Westferry Times. So Dr. Fraser, let's start with the big picture. Why this focus on immigration from labor right now?
Well, I think from a strategic point of view, a key element is uh, undoubtedly electoral calculation. Labor knows immigration is a big concern for, well, a significant chunk of voters, particularly in those constituencies, they've swung away from them recently.
Right.
So by taking a firmer stance, they're aiming to address those concerns directly, trying to sort of neutralize potential conservative attacks and show they can manage borders and ensure fairness.
Fairness. Okay.
It seems particularly aimed at winning back those key swing voters.
Okay, so it's definitely a strategic play. Let's drill down into the specifics then. What are the actual proposed changes, the main ones?
Yeah, so we're looking at broadly three main areas.
Yeah.
First, there's talk of a cap on net migration. The exact details are still a bit vague, but it'd likely be linked to economic forecasts, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Second, they've suggested raising the salary thresholds for skilled worker visas, which, does echo recent moves by the current conservative government.
It does.
And third, potential restrictions on dependents, specifically mentioning care workers and international students bringing family.
It is striking how similar some of that sounds to the current government's policies. Is it fair to say Labour's just adopting the Tory approach?
That's certainly a criticism being made, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you can see why. Labor's walking a bit of a tightrope, really. They need to signal change, project stronger border control. So they're taking on board elements of the Sunak-era policy. But their rhetoric is often softer, focusing more on management.
Right.
The critical point, though, is the actual impact. The practical consequences could end up looking very similar, regardless of the tone. The mechanics seem quite aligned.
So if these policies do come in, who's likely to feel the biggest effects? Which sectors?
I think the most immediate impact will probably be felt in sectors that rely heavily on overseas workers, especially lower wage roles.
Like what?
Well, think about social care, hospitality, logistics, too. These areas already have, quite tight domestic labor markets. Making it harder to recruit from abroad could really worsen existing shortages. And that's not just theoretical. There's a real risk of holding back economic activity if businesses can't fill jobs.
So pressure on staff, delays.
Exactly. More pressure on existing staff, potential service delays, maybe even rising costs.
Okay, let's shift to the politics of it.
Yeah.
How is this going down within the Labour Party itself? Is everyone on board?
Oh, there's definitely a range of views. The leadership probably sees it as, necessary pragmatism, building public trust, showing responsibility.
Right.
But there's certainly some unease. You hear it from some MPs, particularly those with very diverse constituencies, and also from the party's left-wing trade unions, refugee charities. They feel it's maybe a step away from traditional labor values, perhaps a concession to a more restrictive mood.
Yeah.
It shows that internal balancing act.
And what about the Conservatives? How are they reacting? Must be an interesting position for them.
It is, yeah, it's quite nuanced. On one hand, they're trying to paint labor as inconsistent, pointing out labor previously criticized similar Tory policies, so attacking their credibility, basically.
Right, questioning if they really mean it.
Exactly. But on the other hand, they're also accusing labor of just, well, copying their homework, trying to look tough. It really just highlights how much immigration dominates as a political issue, a real wedge issue. Both parties vying for advantage there.
Let's go back to those real-world impacts. You mentioned the NHS and social care shortages. Can you expand on that a bit? How bad could it get?
Well, the current gaps are already huge. We're talking tens of thousands of vacancies in health and care.
Wow.
So if these rules make it harder to recruit from overseas, or if the dependent restrictions put people off coming, then it's very likely these critical shortages will just get worse. And that translates directly into, longer waiting times for patients, more strain on the staff who are there.
And maybe quality of care suffers.
Potentially, yes. It's a serious concern for how these vital public services function day to day. It really shows that direct link between immigration policy and service capacity.
Okay, another area you mentioned was higher education, international students. What's the potential issue there?
The dependent restrictions are key again. Many international students, especially postgraduates, often want to bring their partners or children.
Sure, makes sense.
If the UK seems less welcoming to families, these students might just choose other countries. Canada, Australia. They often have different visa rules for dependents.
And that hits universities financially.
Significantly, UK universities rely quite heavily on international student fees, so a drop in numbers could have big financial implications. Plus, it could damage the UK's reputation as a top global study destination, affecting future talent coming here, too.
It really sounds like these changes, aimed maybe at the headline numbers, could set off a whole chain reaction. Unintended consequences, perhaps.
Absolutely. Immigration is such a complex web. Everything's interconnected. Policies that look simple on paper can have these huge, sometimes unforeseen ripple effects across the economy, across society. It's not just about numbers coming in. It's about skills, productivity, supporting public services, the whole social fabric, really.
Mm.
Even small tweaks to the rules can have surprisingly big consequences down the line. It really underscores the need for, well, careful thought and proper impact assessments.
Looking ahead then, Dr. Fraser, what's your final take on where labor is heading with this? Is this a permanent shift, or might it change if they get into power?
Well, predicting is always tricky, isn't it? But if labor were to form a government, they'd immediately face that constant tension. The tension between public opinion on immigration and the actual economic needs of the country.
The practical realities?
Exactly. My feeling is we might see some of these headline reforms brought in initially. But over time, the hard realities of labor shortages, the need for global talent,
Mm.
that might push them towards a more, shall we say, nuanced or pragmatic approach in practice. It really poses that classic question. How much does pre-election talk match the reality of governing?
And the crucial question, I suppose, will voters buy it? Is this position politically workable for labor in the long run?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? That's what determines if this strategy works. Labor's doing a very delicate balancing act here, trying to sound firm, principled on immigration,
But maybe less harsh.
yes, while trying to avoid some of the more divisive language,
Yeah.
conveying fairness. Whether it works electorally? Well, that depends if the public sees them as credible on this. Do voters trust them to manage migration effectively and fairly? It feels like the margin for error on this political calculation is pretty thin.
Dr. Alex Fraser, thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful, really helped clarify a very complicated picture.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So there you have it, our deep dive into Labor's proposed immigration changes. We've looked at the details, the potential impacts, the politics. It's clear these proposals could ripple out quite widely across the UK. We hope this discussion has given you plenty to think about, different angles to consider. Hopefully it's provided some valuable clarity on a really important issue. From the deep dive, I'm your host, Emily. Good